into an elongated, abstract figure across the dry, parched earth. Grasping an empty pop bottle tightly in his hand, the boy began to sing into his make-believe microphone, warbling, uncertain at first, until something inside of him suddenly erupted, something strange, volcanic, burbling up from down below, something unearthly, startling, unknown even to himself, something Dwight Yoakam would describe years later as the cry of an angel falling backward through an open window. As the boy tilted his head back, facing the sky with his pale eyes shut tight, his voice began to soar with all the soul an 8-year-old could muster. In the distance, oil rigs pinged and clanked in a steady 4/4 rhythm as the warm prairie wind sighed like violins behind his lonely song. One part opera, one part blue yodel. Excited, he barely slept that night, like a comic book superhero dying to tell someone about his newfound secret power. A couple of days later, his father, Orby Lee, asked Roy what he wanted to be when he grew up. Any other kid in town would have probably answered sheriff, roustabout, or maybe taxidermist. But Roy Kelton Orbison replied without hesitation. He seemed to know what his earthly mission was destined to be pretty much from the get-go. A singer, he told his father earnestly. Well, all the same, much as you love music, son, you'd better learn something about geology if you don't want to be stuck working in the oil fields for the rest of your life, Orby Lee advised knowingly. Country music wasn't merely played on the radio around the Orbison household. It was an integral part of family life. Asked what he wanted for his 6th birthday, Roy replied, a harmonica. Instead, Orby Lee presented him with his first guitar, a Sears and Roebuck Gene Autry singing cowboy model, and showed him how to tune it, and how to strum and form his chords. His dad loved Jimmy Rogers's blue yodels and hard-knock country ballads, and a couple of Roy's uncles, Orby Lee's brother Charlie and Uncle Kenneth, on his mother Nadine's side, who sang from time to time on the local radio station in Vernon, would come around to pick and sing on the weekends. A pal of Orby Lee's from work named Clois Russell stopped by the house to play old country favorites with him at Sunday afternoon fish fries. Orby Lee and Clois sounded pretty good together and performed occasionally around town at local dances. Roy was not only blessed with his father's voice, as he recalled in an interview years later, but Orby Lee fueled his 10-year-old son's love of country music by taking him to see Lefty Frizzell, whose #1 hit, If You've Got the Money, I've Got the Time, was one of Roy's favorites. Orbison. Now that's a name you don't hear every day. Irish in origin from the north, about 20 miles outside of Belfast in County Armagh, in the town of Lurgan, known as the Long Ridge, a typical village lined with rows of small thatched-roof cottages and a parish with a Protestant spire that looms over the town, tall and dark as a witch's hat. Lurgan was peopled, for the most part, by the British, who raised corn and manufactured and sold linen, both of which had begun to decline in profitability by the start of the 1700s. Lurgan and neighboring villages of Portadown and Craigavon comprised what eventually became known as the dreaded Murder Triangle, a region so named for the constant violent clashes between the Protestants and Catholics that continued all the way into the 1990s. Roy's earliest known ancestor, Thomas Orbison, born in 1715, hailed from the land where the Troubles raged. Sometime by the middle of the century, Thomas crossed the Atlantic to the New World and settled in Pennsylvania, where he raised his family. Both his son John and his grandson Thomas were born and lived in Cumberland County, a bucolic paradise settled by farmers and merchants from the British Isles and Germany. Samuel, born to Thomas and his wife Jenny Moore in 1815, was raised in Virginia and eventually migrated to the far southwest corner of Oklahoma to the town of Olustee, and there, in the Barren Plains, the family stayed until Orby Lee, Roy's dad, was born on January 8, 1913. Orby Lee had a twin brother, oddly enough also named Orby, spelled with a Y, who died at birth. Whatever legends and anecdotes have been told and retold around the family table over the years, it's pretty safe to say the Orbisons came from